There are three main categories of shipping. We have small parcel delivery, LTL, and FTL. Small parcel is the stuff that's carried by the mailman or the UPS or the FedEx guy. LTL is anything that's on a pallet. And then FTL is full containers. We use small parcel delivery to ship to the customers. When we ship to our warehouses or from our suppliers or to our distribution centers, we're using pallets and containers. We don't ship these two to customers. Question: how many pallets do you think a container can hold? At a certain point, it doesn't make sense to ship on pallets. It makes sense to just get a whole container. 20 is the number of pallets that you can fit in a full 40-foot container. Let's talk about the costs before we move on. Small parcel can range anywhere from $400 to $200. That's the general rule of thumb. When shipping to customers, we want our shipping costs to be as low as possible and as reliable as possible. But we'll talk about that in a minute. When it comes to pallets, expect to spend $100 to $1,000. We use a service called Uber Freight, and that helps us source the cheapest quotes. You can also work with a logistics company or a shipping company. Now, containers are a little bit different, but you'd be surprised how affordable they are. These are the same containers that come across the ocean on a giant tanker. It's not that bad. $1,200 to $7,500 is the current going price to ship a container from China to the United States. Let's talk about small parcel delivery, because there are four main categories that I want you to be aware of. Now, remember, this is shipping to your customer, the box, the mailer. We have the Postal Service, or USPS. We've got UPS, FedEx, and DHL. United States Postal Service, or USPS, is what we use most of the time. They're the most affordable. They are the easiest to find. They are experts at the last mile delivery, meaning going from the distribution center to the actual customer's house. They're the best at it, and UPS and FedEx contract with them for help because they're so good. You can get free packaging and materials if you're shipping priority mail or flat rate stuff, and they will pick up from your house for free if you have a Stamps.com account. There are some cons, however. Customer service, terrible. They call it going postal for a reason. I'm serious. They have a high percentage of damaged items and lost items, and if one of your things gets lost or missing, like, good luck recovering it. The best you could probably do is get reimbursed for the expense. So make sure you keep your receipts and document everything. They're definitely the lowest tech of all the carriers, and their systems are, they're okay. Let's talk about UPS. I like these guys. They are an Amazon partner. So what you'll find is that as you're shipping in small parcel deliveries to your Amazon warehouse, UPS will be the default option. Dropping your stuff off at UPS with the prepaid labels, it's great. I love it. And I'm really glad they partnered with UPS because it just works. I have a video on how to ship your products into Amazon if you need help on that. I got you. UPS has a ton of locations. They're also a franchise, so you can find them pretty easily. Sometimes they're cheaper than the post office. For certain items that grounded vantage might not be the best for, like a slightly heavy small package, UPS can be a great option and it can save you a ton of money. When you're buying your shipping on Stamps.com, it's very easy to compare the post office to UPS. In fact, it will tell you which one's the cheapest. That's how I know this. They do have decent support. We've reached out to them before and it's worked, but don't expect miracles. It's a logistics company. You can purchase labels through Stamps.com. I think that part's really cool because that's the system that we use to ship our packages, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But most importantly, you can build a relationship with your drivers. If you're shipping UPS often, or you have deliveries often from UPS, you can get to know your people. Everyone's a person. We're all humans. And getting the chance to build a relationship with someone cool, it's awesome. You could argue that you could do that with the post office too, but you and I both know it's a different type of person. When it comes to the UPS drivers, I like them and I use them, but only if it makes sense because cost is king when it comes to shipping. Now, there are some cons for UPS. They're slower than FedEx, but they are faster than the post office most of the time. They have decent support, they can be expensive, and their systems are just kind of meh. FedEx. We use FedEx when we know we need stuff to get there overnight. You could argue that they are the fastest of the shipping companies. They're great for freight and LTL, meaning pallets and containers. It's actually the type of business that they focus on, not shipping small parcels to customers. They have the best tracking, and sometimes they can be cheaper than the post office, but very rarely. They have decent support. I've reached out to them many times and they've been quite helpful. And they will pick up stuff from your house, just like the other guys. DHL will not, though, as far as I know. And you can purchase labels through partners like Stamps.com. Now, let's talk about the cons with FedEx, because we know that we use FedEx when we need to get something there overnight. We don't use FedEx for heavy stuff that doesn't need to get there quickly. The problem is that they're not an Amazon partnered carrier. So if you want to use FedEx to ship into Amazon, it's going to cost you way more. They're also really expensive. By far, they are the most expensive of all of the carriers. Their online systems are okay, but their drivers aren't as plentiful. They don't have as many of them. They also view themselves as a freight company, not a small parcel delivery company. So a lot of times last mile will be done by the post office. When you need to ship a pallet, highly recommend looking at FedEx because that's what they're really good at. I didn't know that until I started selling products. I thought they were the same as the other guys, but yeah, they're not. DHL is also a contender. I haven't shipped a ton with DHL. I did work with a 3PL once who used DHL e-commerce, which is a form of e-commerce shipping, but I had mixed reviews. Here are the pros for DHL. They can be fast. They're the best at worldwide shipping. They have planes and offices all over the world, by far the best at worldwide. They excel at getting stuff from US to Canada and vice versa. Much easier with DHL than the post office. Don't use the post office for that. They have a dedicated e-commerce shipping service, which can be quite affordable and competitive with the post office's Ground Advantage, which is the cheapest way to ship. They're a great partner for 3PLs because they come and they pick up and they are willing to do business and create special deals for these people. And the costs aren't that bad. They're cheaper than FedEx, but a little bit more expensive than UPS. If you're shipping worldwide, you may want to look into this. They have their challenges though, just like everybody else. Their customer support is arguably worse than the post office. The few times that I've had to reach out to DHL, it was not fun. I'll leave it at that. Their online systems are meh. They're really big and they don't care about you. Now, this is just my opinion, by the way. That is probably not true, but I wanted to share with you my personal experience of having dealt with them. They're challenging to set up. It's not the easiest system to get working and get integrated and talking to all of your stuff like ShipStation and Stamps.com and TikTok. They're just not that good at integrations. They prefer to work with 3PLs instead of the individual businesses because they want to grab them in bulk and ship them out. They don't want to work with the individual owners like myself and you. Their systems are pretty complicated too. I don't know if you ever tried to navigate their website, but it's just not easy. So what do I use? Ground Advantage from the post office. The biggest reason? It's affordable. It's the cheapest one. I put stuff in a mailer, I print out my label on Stamps.com, I slap it on, drop it off at the post office, or have the driver come pick it up, and I'm done. It's that easy. But let's talk about the how. When we have an order that comes in on Shopify, how does it actually get shipped to our customer? What happens in between? I think it's really important to touch on briefly. So we have the orders come into Shopify, and every day my logistics manager, Hannah, will go into ShipStation and print out all of the orders. ShipStation is a service that we use to manage all of our shipping. Do we have to use it? We could probably get away with just using stamps. But it brings everything together from all of our channels. It'll take merchant fulfilled from Amazon. It will also grab your Etsy orders and your eBay orders and your Shopify orders and your WordPress orders, and it will aggregate them all in one area. And then you can batch print and have a bunch of data and recording and resources. You can also send out really nice emails and all that kind of stuff when shipping does take place. So the order comes in on Shopify, then we open up ShipStation and it pulls in all of the orders. And then all the labels are printed on our thermal label printer. We use a Dymo 4XL. Stamps.com is the service that we use to purchase the shipping. Stamps.com is the post office. They own Stamps.com, so it's one and the same. Stamps.com is linked to ShipStation, which is linked to Shopify. So when an order comes through, we purchase the postage through Stamps.com, and ShipStation helps us keep it organized and execute on the actual printing of the labels. So how do we get shipments from our supplier to our warehouse? How does that work? Well, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. In fact, there are many, and it's really confusing, and it will make you feel like you have no idea what you're doing when you first experience this. So I put together this table for us so that we can better understand all of the weird terms. Okay, let's take a look really quick. Up at the top, we have the seller, and on the right, we have the buyer. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen in between when you're shipping stuff on a boat overseas. It's got to go from the factory to the shipyard, right? And then it's got to be loaded. And then it's got to get off the ship onto a truck, and that truck has got to go to a center and then get distributed to you. So there's a lot of different steps, and each step requires stuff, right? It just requires work, and people need to get paid. There's documentation that needs to happen. So in the logistics world, they've put together this sheet called Incoterms. And these are terms that help you understand at what point in the process you're taking over responsibility for the shipment. At what point in the process are you going to cover it and pay for it? Most shipping companies, most businesses operate on FOB, or free on board. That means that the supplier is going to get it to the boat, and then you're responsible for it once it's on the boat. You need to pay for customs, you need to pay for the port fees, you need to pay for shipping to your warehouse, they will get it to the boat. So when you're negotiating with suppliers overseas, use this sheet to help better understand the type of shipping they're going to provide. I would shoot for FOB if you can. I mean, ideally, having them pay for everything is the best situation, but I like having ownership over my stuff when it's in US waters and when it's in the US ports. So FOB would be the move. At the very least, you'll look like you know what you're talking. Now, I don't expect you to learn this process. I learned enough about it so that I could find the right person to work with. I use a freight forwarder, Krins and Hannon International. These guys specialize in getting your stuff from overseas to the USA. They can also help you get stuff from the USA overseas, but long story short, they understand the licenses and the bonding and the customs and the value-added tax and the duties, and they just get it. Thomas is really cool, and he's never failed me, and my stuff has never gotten stuck. If you need someone, please reach out to Thomas and tell him I sent you. So where does it go when it arrives? What happens next? Well, it's either going to go to our warehouse, one of our 3PLs, or it's going to go to my house and then into a storage unit. If you're anything like me, business banking can feel intimidating and overwhelming. That's why this video is sponsored by Relay, a business banking platform that's better than all the others. Why do I say it's better? Because I use it. I love it. And it's way better than all the other big name banks that I've used. They do everything I need a bank account to do. Multiple accounts? No problem. Send checks? Easy. Pay yourself? Statements? Connect to QuickBooks Online? All of it. It's taken me years to find a banking partner like Relay. So I reached out to them. I asked them if we could work together to sponsor this video because I enjoy and use their products so much. And I know that if I spread the word to you, there's a chance you'll get to experience what I've experienced. Stress-free online business banking. The setup is super easy and can be completed from your computer at home. All you need is your LLC paperwork and your EIN. After a short application process, you're done. There's no monthly fees, there's no monthly minimums, there's no account minimums, there's no minimum balances, there's no hidden fees. Big thanks to Relay for sponsoring this video. I'll leave an affiliate link in the description so you can get set up with your very own business bank account from the comfort of your home. So let's talk about 3PLs for a second. 3PL stands for Third Party Logistics Center. Basically, a place that ships your packages for you. They also hold your inventory. A lot of people use 3PLs. There are lots of them out there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when does it make sense to use one? Typically when shipping is taking up such a significant amount of your time that you're not able to do anything else. Eventually, the shipping process will take more and more and more of your time. And once it gets to a point where it's taking more than an hour or two a day, you want to start to plan for how you're going to offload this. A lot of times people will go to a 3PL or a third-party logistics center. They'll send all their inventory to them and they will pay them to ship all of their packages, but it's expensive. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. Before that, now remember, not all 3PLs are created equal. Certain 3PLs specialize in certain things. Any 3PL that claims they can do it all probably can't. And if they can, they do it mediocre at best. Remember, these are all people. Every single 3PL employs people. It is a service-based business. There is a human being grabbing your item and putting it in a box and packaging it up for your customer. We must keep this in mind when we're working with, evaluating, and interviewing 3PLs, because there's no way to get around it as of yet. One day with robots, soon, but not yet. This is a people business. So when you're thinking about these people, they have specialties. And certain 3PLs are better at other things than others. For example, some 3PLs are best at Amazon Merchant Fulfilled. They can help you do Seller Fulfilled Prime. Very rare, but they're out there. We also have Amazon Prep Centers. These are warehouses that will literally just take your inventory and prep them for Amazon and ship them in for you. That's it. We also have places that specialize in kitting, or taking all of the units and putting them together in the bundle, in the box, and then putting that on a shelf. For example, we have an advanced wood burning bundle. We need to grab the markers and the heat gun and the stencils and the wood and the instructions and the craft paper, and we need to put it all together in this nice box. That's a kit. The person that puts all that stuff in the box for the customer, they're kitting that item. Some places specialize in kitting. You just send them their stuff and they put it together for you. Other places will have it as a service that you can add on. Most 3PLs will have an add-on service for kitting because it's pretty self-explanatory. However, it's in your best interest to tell them how you want things kitted, so make a nice document, show them how it's done. Some places specialize in D2C or shipping directly to the customer. Some specialize in small items. Some do large items like furniture. Those two typically aren't the same type of business, by the way. Some places want you to have tons of SKUs because that's how they make their money. That's what their specialty. Other places are like, man, fewer SKUs the better. You can only have so many SKUs if you're going to work with us. So keep these things in mind when you're making the switch to a 3PL so you can make sure you're aligning with the right one. If you're an Amazon seller, you probably don't really care about D2C. You want a place that specializes in kitting and Amazon prep and Amazon shipments. So what kind of cost should you expect when working with a 3PL? Now, these are basics. Please don't hold me to this. This is just a general rule of thumb. The item charge is 25 cents. Whenever they have to grab an item and put it in the package, it's 25 cents. If you're doing a 10 pack of wood slices and they have to grab 10 slices, $2.50. Expensive. Pick fee is typically a per order charge. They will charge you however much they need to for the package to go and pick it. We also have pallet storage. We talked about that, $5 to $40. Inventory counting can be as much as $30 an hour. Shipment intakes as much as $30 an hour. And then they have a markup on postage, which is unknown. We have our labor hours, 20 to 40. We have our prep and kitting. They will typically charge per SKU or hourly on this. And then we have the software charges, which I've seen anywhere from $0 to $300 a month. So how do you figure this out so you can properly budget and figure out if you can afford it? Well, there's the back of the napkin math, which is 15% of your top line. So take 15% of your sales. If you can afford to spend 15% of every dollar that you make on shipping, you can afford a 3PL. This 15% is earmarked for postage, 3PL costs, kitting, and storage. So it should cover everything. If you're spending more than 15% on these items, something's wrong and we need to fix it and we need to figure out how to cut that cost. However, you might want a more detailed breakdown. So here's what I would do. I would give them the last 90 days worth of shipping data from your Shopify store and tell them to make some mock invoices for you. Tell them how many pallets you have and how often you ship to Amazon and what your kitting process looks like. And they should be able to put something together for you. Ask them to bill you based on the data you provided. And then once you get that invoice, you can go through each line item and figure out exactly what they're charging you and for what, so you can have a better idea of how much it's going to cost you to use a 3PL. You've got to get really comfortable with this stuff. It's going to be expensive and you're moving your inventory around. So please don't take this decision lightly and really pay attention to the costs. It can be a real bummer if you mess this up. Ask me how I know. So here are the takeaways. I really want you to understand this process so you don't have to lose money on it. We've got to get the product to the customer. We've got to get the product to us. It costs money. We have to spend money on this. How much money is the difference though? So hopefully this video has helped you understand your options and what to expect when it comes to shipping. If you can ship stuff yourself, it will save you a lot of money. Of course, the price is time, but it will save you a lot. A lot of people that I know pay a local person to come to their house and do the shipments for them. That way they don't have to pay for any of the expensive stuff. And once they get to a point where they're doing about 2 to 6 hours of shipping a day, they hire that person, they come in, do the shipping, they pay them an hourly rate. Works out really well. It's a great way to go. And honestly, you can get to multiple 7 figures with that method. Use a freight forwarder to navigate the customs and getting stuff from overseas to the US. Really important. It just makes life so much easier. Really be conscious about storage too. The number of pallets that you have, like we have I don't know, 60 or 70 pallets right now of inventory. Arguably too many. I have to spend $5 a pallet in storing those. It's $250 a month just for holding our stuff. I know it might not seem like a lot, but it really adds up. Please only use a 3PL if you can afford it. So if you are in the market for a 3PL, please reach out so you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did, which is going with a 3PL that isn't a good fit for you. If you like this video, there's a lot more where that came from. I have put together some incredible trainings, frameworks, scripts, and everything else you might need to make content effortless so you can have more followers and make more sales, just like these members right here. Click the link below and you'll have instant access to everything. I'll see you on the new members call.